Yeah. The thing I find trickiest is when people don't recognize you, particularly, but half recognize you. The boy who stuttered so badly that classmates called him an alien became the world's most beloved comedian. But Rowan Atkinson's transformation came at a cost. He found his stutter disappeared completely when he performed. But only then. Every Mr. Bean episode drained him emotionally. He called the character exhausting and looked forward to filming ending. The man who made millions laugh admitted he felt like a fraud. Now at 70, he's revealing how his childhood trauma shaped everything. The silent comedian finally found his voice to tell his story. Rowan Sebastian Atkinson was born on January 6, 1955 in Concert, a small town in County Durham, England. He was the youngest of 4 boys, but something sad happened before he was even old enough to remember. His eldest brother, Paul, died as a baby, leaving just 3 brothers. One of Rowan's brothers, Rodney, later became an economist and almost became the leader of a UK Independence Party in 2000. Growing up on a farm, Rowan lived a very quiet and disciplined life. But the funny thing is he would one day become famous for playing loud, silly characters. When Rowan was around 5 years old, he started having a serious stutter. He couldn't get words out smoothly, and it made school very hard. He went to Durham Chester School, where the bullying was cruel. Ken and John Grove, who worked there, remembered Rowan as a shy boy with a rubbery face and a speech problem. Some of his classmates even said he looked like an alien. They laughed at the way he talked and the way he looked. And Rowan spent most of his time alone. One of the kids at that school was Tony Blair, who would later become Prime Minister. Tony was 2 years younger and remembered how tough things were for Rowan. The bullying was so bad, a 2007 article in The Independent talked about it. But something peculiar occurred once Rowan took the stage. His stutter disappeared entirely. He could perform with no problem whatsoever. That painful part of his childhood became the key to his gift. Even with the bullying, Rowan was brilliant at school. He received top grades in his Science A levels and secured a spot at NUCA, Slee University, in 1973. At only 18 years old, he studied electrical and electronic engineering. Many thought he would become a scientist or an engineer, not a comedian. He left in 1975 when he was 20. Following that, he went to the Queen's College, Oxford, as his father did, for his master's degree. His MSc was on something very complicated called self-tuning control systems. He even started working on a PhD and did not finish. He felt something pulling him in another direction. His teacher, Chris Robson, once said that Rowan did not stand out in class. The moment he stepped onto the stage, he was somebody else. That's when the real transformation began. While at Oxford in 1975, he joined the drama club and a review group called the Etc. It was during this time that he met a young writer named Richard Curtis. This meeting would change both of their lives. Richard saw Rowan perform for the very first time during a rehearsal in early 1976. He later said there was a quiet, funny-looking guy standing in the corner, but when Rowan finally performed, Richard was blown away. Rowan did a sketch about driving, and a bit where he spoke at the same time as he mimed. Richard called it pure genius. That same year, in August of 1976, Rowan performed with the Oxford Review at the Edinburgh Festival Fringe. This was his first time performing for a big national crowd. The show went well, and all of a sudden, Rowan's path was so clear. He was an engineer. He was a performer. In 1975, while still at Oxford, Rowan officially started his master's degree in electrical engineering. His research was serious, and he published his thesis in 1978. Still, that took more and more of a backseat to acting. The contrast between engineering and comedy further complicated things, but that technical background did stick with him. Many years later, he would be one of the first celebrities to buy electric cars. He bought his first hybrid 18 years before 2023, and his first fully electric car 9 years before that same year. He also used that knowledge to speak critically about electric vehicle technology and environmental claims. But even with all this, it seemed his true love was comedy. The theater was his home. His first big moment came in 1979 when he created a radio show called The Atkinson People for BBC Radio 3. He played a bunch of fictional characters like Sir Corin Basin and French philosopher George Dupin. Richard Curtis helped write it, and Griff Rhys-Jones produced it. It was funny and smart, but it just didn't get many listeners. It aired in a slot that wasn't made for comedy, so few people heard it. Still, the critics saw how talented he was. It was done in stereo sound just like The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Even though it did not make him famous, it did show that Rowan was ready for something bigger. Between 1978 and 1979, it got tough. The BBC said no to him again and again. They didn't understand his comedy. He felt lost and depressed. His stutter got worse during interviews and auditions, and things got even harder because of that. At one point, he thought about quitting comedy and returning to engineering. Then something happened and changed everything. He realized that when he acted a character, his stutter vanished. That gave him power. It wasn't necessary for him to perfectly enunciate as himself. He could let the characters do the talking. Rowan continued to work with old friends, including Angus Deaton, whom he'd met at Oxford. They performed together on radio, and Angus often took the role of the serious straight man. That helped Rowan shine with his wild characters. Angus later appeared in Mr. Bean and in an episode of Blackadder. The cooperation gave Rowan confidence at a time when TV was still rejecting him. It let him grow without the pressure of being on camera all the time. In 1979, he went back to the Edinburgh Fringe Festival. He was now 24 years old. He was even seen helping build the stage and clear rubble at the new Wireworks Theater. His show was mostly silent, like an old Buster Keaton film. Some people didn't get it and even walked out, but others saw something special. He used his face and body in a way few comedians ever could. That performance helped him connect with the right people in the industry. By 1980, he started trying for TV again. He created a pilot called Can Laughter that aired in 1979. He played multiple roles, including a very early version of Mr. Bean. The show was clever, but didn't get picked up as a series. His stutter returned during many of these auditions, making things even more stressful. But he began to understand how to beat it. He threw himself into his characters completely. By the time he appeared on Wogan in 1980, at age 25, he had mastered how to hide his stutter through performance. That was the beginning of the end of the struggle. From that moment, the world began to take notice of a strange, quiet boy who had turned pain into laughter. Rowan Atkinson's life changed forever. In 1979, that was the year the BBC gave him a chance on a new comedy show called Not the 9 O'Clock News. It was supposed to air in April, but got pushed back because of the general election. BBC thought the show might be too political at that moment. The first episode finally aired on October 16, 1979. But things didn't go well. Almost no one watched it. Less than 1 million viewers tuned in. Critics hated it. Some called it offensive, and even said it should never be on television. Mel Smith, who would later become a close co-star, said it was the worst half-hour of TV he had ever seen. But surprisingly, the BBC controller liked it. He ordered another series immediately. That decision saved the show and made it one of the most important British comedy shows ever. Rowan worked alongside Pamela Stephenson, Mel Smith, and Griff Rhys-Jones, and they all became stars. Behind the scenes, things weren't so smooth. In 1980, after just one series, Chris Longam was fired. Rowan didn't agree with this. He tried to convince the producers to keep Chris, showing how loyal he was. But Chris was still removed and replaced by Griff Rhys-Jones. The fallout was so bitter that Chris refused to talk to any of them for years. On top of that, the BBC started cutting the show's budget. It got so bad that they even joked about it in an episode called the outrageously expensive Not the 9 O'Clock News. They had to stop filming in fancy locations and cut smaller roles. During this time, Rowan's serious and perfectionist side started to show. The tone of the show also changed. It moved away from shock humor and leaned more into clever and odd comedy. There were clear signs of creative disagreements behind closed doors. Then came the moment that changed everything for Rowan. In 1980, during the second series, a sketch called Gerald the Gorilla aired. Mel Smith played a professor who claimed to have trained a gorilla named Gerald. But Gerald, played by Rowan in a gorilla suit, turned out to be smarter and angrier than anyone expected. When a professor said he caught Gerald in the wild in 1968, Gerald snapped, shouting, "Wild!" I was absolutely livid. That line became famous. The sketch became so popular that real scientists jokingly started calling groups of baboons a flange, just like in the sketch. The episode helped the show win the Silver Rose at the Montreux Festival in 1982. It also won the BAFTA for Best Light Entertainment Program. That one sketch helped catapult Rowan into the history books as a true master of both physical comedy and bizarre humor. It also set him up for his future work on Blackadder and Mr. Bean. In 1981, things got even weirder. The show put out a comedy single called I Like Trucking as part of the Hedgehog Sandwich album, and it hit the charts. No one predicted that Rowan, with zero music training, would be part of a charting single, yet he was. All 4 cast members were singing together, and Rowan himself actually drove that truck in the sketch. Not mimicking, either. He had, at that point, an honest-to-goodness Class 1 lorry license. That little fact made the whole thing just that little bit more real and hilarious. The song came out as a single under BBC Records and got popular enough to make it onto BBC compilations later. It proved one thing. Rowan wasn't just a sketch comic. He could do more. He could sing, act, drive, and entertain different formats. But by 1982, things took a darker turn. The show ended in March that year, and it wasn't because of ratings. It was because the cast, including Rowan, hit their breaking point. They were burnout. The fast pace, the pressure, the writing, the acting, the anxiety. It all got too much. Rowan was particularly suffering. He had long struggled with anxiety, and the workload had pushed him to his limits. So instead of riding their success and continuing on with the money and the fame, they walked. Pamela Stevenson went to Hollywood. Meanwhile, Rowan jumped straight into filming Blackadder in 1983. Mel Smith and Griff Rhys-Jones created their show, Alas Smith and Jones. The decision to quit at the height of their popularity was rare. It showed how much he valued mental health and artistic integrity over cash. On June 15, 1983, Rowan set off to launch a Blackadder. It was a wild idea. He co-created it with Richard Curtis, the same man he had previously worked with during Not the 9 O'Clock News. They came up with the idea of a world in which Richard III won at the Battle of Bosworth Field. Rowan would star as Prince Edmund, the devious and scheming son of King Richard IV. They filmed at Elwick Castle with massive sets and thousands of costumes. The show was a huge risk. It was even partly funded by Australia's 7 Network. They even put in a joke for credits, additional dialogue by William Shakespeare. The creative leap was huge, but the show was very expensive. The costs were so high that after Series 1, the BBC almost axed it. Rain kept ruining the shoots. The filming at the castle dragged on and on. The period costumes, plus huge cast lists, blew the budget. The reviews weren't even that good. Critics thought it wasn't as funny as Rowan's earlier work. There was only one thing that saved it. The International Emmy the show won. That award gave the BBC just enough confidence to give it another shot. But this time they made strict changes. No more castles, no more big sets. The next season would be smaller, cheaper, and sharper. That decision completely changed the future of the show. 3 years later, in 1986, Blackadder 2 premiered. Everything was new. Co-writer Ben Elton had joined, with faster jokes and tighter stories. They jettisoned those enormous film sets and focused on character moments. Not only did the set shrink, but the cast shrunk, too. Miranda Richardson played Queenie, a squeaky, hilarious queen who audiences immediately loved. And there were legendary guest appearances, too, like Tom Baker as Red Beardrum. Unforgettable. Rowan's character Edmund became snarky and clever, while Baldric, once smart, became the lovable idiot fans adored. Of course, at first, some fans were upset. A critic even dubbed him Wally of the Week. But with time, public opinion flipped. People realized this was even better. The characters were deeper, the jokes were crisper, and the chemistry perfect. The final season, Blackadder Goes Forth, which aired in 1989, became something no one expected. It was set in the trenches of World War I. Rowan played Captain Blackadder. Hugh Laurie was Lieutenant George, and Tony Robinson was Private Baldrick.